Okay, Hare Krishna. So we're in Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2, and we're in chapter 1, and today we'll be covering text number 2. So I will read the text and then we can discuss a little bit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is, again, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 2. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrasa Apashyatam Atma Tattvam Griheshu Grhamedinam. We'll do the word for word. Shrotavya Adini, subject matters for hearing. Rajendra, O Emperor. Nrinam, of human society. Shanti, there are. Sahasrasha, hundreds and thousands. Apashyatam, of the blind. Atma Tattvam, knowledge of self, the ultimate truth. Griheshu, at home. Grhamedinam, of persons too materially engrossed. Translation. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. And purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the revealed scriptures, there are two nomenclatures for the householder's life. One is Grhastha, and the other is Grhamedhi. The Grhasthas are those who live together with wife and children, but live transcendentally for realizing the ultimate truth. The Grhamedhis, however, are those who live only for the benefit of the family members, extended or centralized, and thus are envious of others. The word Medhi indicates jealousy of others. The Grhamedhis, being interested in family affairs only, are certainly envious of others. Therefore, one Grhamedhi is not on good terms with another Grhamedhi, and in the extended form, one community, society, or nation is not on good terms with another counterpart of selfish interest. In the age of Kali, all the householders are jealous of one another because they are blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth. They have many subject matters for hearing, political, scientific, social, economic, and so on. But due to a poor fund of knowledge, they set aside the question of the ultimate miseries of life, namely miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. Factually, the human life is meant for making an ultimate solution to birth, death, old age, and disease. But the Grhamedhis, being illusioned by the material nature, forget everything about self-realization. The ultimate solution to the problem of life is to go back home, back to Godhead. And thus, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8:16, the miseries of material existence, birth, death, old age, and disease are removed. The process of going back home, back to Godhead, is to hear about the Supreme Lord and his name, form, attributes, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Foolish people do not know this. They want to hear something about the name, form, etc. of everything temporary, and they do not know how to utilize this propensity of hearing for the ultimate good. Misguided as they are, they also create some false literatures about the name, form, attributes, etc. of the ultimate truth. One should not therefore become a Grhamedhi simply to exist for envying others. One should become a real householder in terms of these scriptural injunctions. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. This is a very interesting verse and purport. I think a lot could probably be discussed on this purport alone. A few points stood out to me, so maybe we can go through those. And if anyone has any other points they'd like to add at the end, that would be nice. So One thing is that, well, I guess the context here, first of all, is that Maharaj Parikshit, he's beginning to hear from Shukadeva Goswami. So he had sat down ready to accept his death from the bird, the snake bird, and he had decided to fast until death. And at that time, Shukadeva Goswami appears. And so at the end of the first canto, Maharaj Parikshit had asked a question. He had asked what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. So this was the full question that Maharaj Parikshit had asked. And in the first verse of this canto, the previous verse to this, Shukadeva Goswami begins to speak, and he starts by glorifying the very question itself, because the question itself reveals, what the question itself reveals the focus that Maharaj Parikshit has, and the intent, the pure intent that he has. And so here we hear Shukadeva Goswami begin to answer this question. So the translation again: those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. And actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains in his commentary to this verse that since the question was also asking, what should a man not hear? There was the positive side. What should a man hear, remember, and worship? And then also what he should not do, meaning what are the things he should not hear, chant, remember, and worship? So Shukadeva Goswami in this verse and the upcoming two verses, he's answering what a man should not do, explaining how Grhamedhis lose track by being attached to material temporary things. So this is kind of the beginning of that negative side of the question. And then in Prabhupada's purport, he's explaining kind of the difference between a Grhastha and a Grhamedhi, leaning more heavily, talking about the Grhamedhi lifestyle. So in the beginning of the purport, he defines Grhastha as those who live together with wife and children, but live transcendentally for realizing the ultimate truth. And then when he defines Grhamedhi, he says, those who live only for the benefit of the family members, extended or centralized, and thus are envious of others. And he explains that in the full phrase Grhamedhi, the word Medhi is referring to jealousy or envy. And he kind of expands on this, explaining that Grhamedhis are always enviously wanting what other Grhamedhis have. I thought that was very interesting, obviously. And the interesting thing about envy in this way is that it can be subtle. It can affect us without us even realizing it. So for example, the whole reason that the entire ad industry exists is because we are subtly affected by these different the ads that appear to us. And now, especially with social media and with the increase of technology, now there are tailored ads depending on who is seeing a particular device or screen. And so the ad industry clearly is succeeding because what it does is it plants the seeds of desire in us without us even realizing it. And then we end up going out and getting things because we think that either we need that or we see somebody else with that. And we think, oh, look, that this other Grhamedhi is getting a lot of satisfaction from having this material thing. So I will also need to get that material thing, whether it's things to fill our house, new cars, a bigger house. The list can go on and on as far as things that we become envious of that others have. So I thought that was a very interesting explanation. And Prabhupada explains that this, the beginning of the envy is from family to family. So for example, I may see that my next door neighbor has a bigger TV than me. So then I want to go out and get a bigger TV. Or my next door neighbor has a nicer car. So maybe I want to get a car. And then this envy grows as you expand outwards and upwards to larger segments of society. So from family to family, from region to region, from state to state. And then, Prabhupada is expanding it all the way up to from community to community, society, or even nation to nation. And then the levels of envy that manifest at these different levels may look different. And you could say at the national level, for example, it can end up as war, maybe war over particular resources. We obviously see that happening. So very interesting how this envy kind of manifests on every level in a different way. And Prabhupada explains essentially that Grhamedhis are too engrossed in wanting temporary solutions. So in that sense, because of that, they lose sight of the ultimate solution. There was a sentence here. Yeah, I mean, Prabhupada explains the ultimate solution to the problems of life is to go back home, back to Godhead. And thus, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the miseries of material existence, birth, death, old age, and disease are removed. And there was one other point that was standing out to me. I forget. Let me just look at this purport again. Yeah. So the thing is, in this last paragraph, Prabhupada is explaining how, again, the process of going back home, back to Godhead, is to hear about the Lord and his name, form, qualities, pastimes, etc. But instead, foolish people, in this context, Grhamedhis, they want to hear something about the name, form, etc. of everything temporary. And in another reading group, I was reading actually in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 17. I think the title is Divisions of Faith. And Krishna is explaining what does faith look like in the mode of goodness, in the mode of passion, in the mode of ignorance. And he explains how faith in the mode of goodness is basically characterized by as those who worship demigods, and it's for some material gain, but they follow the Vedic injunctions in order to worship the demigods as in the proper way, right? So there are different ways in which the worship of demigods are specifically prescribed within the Vedas, and those in the mode of goodness worship the demigods in those ways. And then Krishna explains faith in the mode of passion. And Prabhupada uses this word a lot, and I think sometimes it can be misconstrued, but he says that those who are in the mode of passion worship demons. And when we hear the word demon, at least in the West, maybe in the East also, the word demon kind of has the connotation of you kind of immediately picture some type of entity that's not human. It looks very ferocious, maybe something like the devil with fangs and ears and wings. And this is kind of like the image of a demon that comes up in the head, at least of someone who grew up in the West. But that's not the demon that Prabhupada is speaking of. When he defines demon, meaning those who are worshipped by those in the mode of passion, he essentially is describing people who are seeking out power and seeking out the position of God, while obviously they are not God. And then those who are having faith in the mode of passion worship such people. And so what I think the way that we would understand such quote unquote demons in our heads are perhaps maybe looking at the people that are in power in the material world. So the people such as the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musks, the, whatever political powers, and just look, when you just look around you, how many people do you know personally who mention either either wanting to embody qualities of the Elon Musks, the Jeff Bezos, essentially wanting to be like this godly human, right? And so this is what I think of when I see Prabhupada speaking about how foolish people do not know that they must hear about God, meaning Krishna, but rather they want to hear about something else, some other name, form, etc., everything temporary. And so that temporary names, forms, etc., that foolish people want to hear about are the successful people within this material world, and how we can become like them, right? Going back to this element of Grhamedis being embodied by envy of others, right? Grhamedis are envious of other Grhamedis, or other people around them, wanting to be like them materially. And so I just connecting these 2 points, I imagine that this element of enviousness that Grhamedis embody is essentially faith within the mode of passion. And it's devoid of, obviously it's not in the mode of goodness, and it's certainly devoid of transcendental goodness, which would be hearing about Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. So yeah, these are some points that I wanted to highlight from this purport. I don't have any other points to add at this point. So I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions. Yeah, I don't think I caught everything, but I hope I caught most of it. If anybody has anything to add, if not, that's okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavad Pramam, all glories to Srila Prabhu. Great lecture, Prabhu. I have a lot of takeaways. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay. No other points to add, then we can stop there. Thank you all very much for joining. Hare Krishna.